All right, there we go. Welcome to the Hip Hop Hustle podcast. We're back. I'm excited. I've got a fantastic artist with me. Hadji Gaviota came through. Please give him some props. He just released a single called Tricky. He's got a showtime. He's got an EP called Showtime with another track called Showtime in it. That is coming out in 5 days. Correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong. I thought I checked.
about a
So
week.
that yeah, about a week,
Yeah,
but that'll be out right now. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out right now. Um, yeah, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I was looking through your music and I was like, oh, you do everything. You mix it up a lot. And I think there's
yeah,
something to that. I think more artists are doing that. I think it's more exciting when you're like, I have no idea what he's going to drop next. And I
for
think
sure.
it keeps you intrigued, man. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, how do you decide like the style that you're going to go for next? Cuz yeah, I was literally looking through your catalog over the years and I'm like, "Oh, you're just literally pushing the boundaries of what you can do."
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of learn as I go, like anybody else, right? It's when I first started making music, like I was kind of just doing what I could, and then I was inspired by a lot of different things, but I didn't always know how to unlock those things in my sound, and so I feel like when I go to the studio or like when I'm working with a producer or whatever, like I just get in there and then I don't usually think about like what kind of sound I want to come out of it. And a lot of times, like that means you'll leave with something totally different. And then I feel like when it comes time to release something, I'll have a big pile of songs and I'll be like, these are all over the place. But usually I can find 8 to 10 of them that kind of fit in one world, and that'll be the next project for me. But I've made like, or with this next project that like Tricky and Showtime and a couple songs after that are gonna be a part of. Like I tried to be a little bit more cohesive with it, but we'll see. For
It's
sure.
that's a really interesting process. I don't think it's that common for people to be like, I'm going to make a bunch of songs. I don't really know what I'm making. I'll find them at the end. Like how many songs would you choose from at the end of that process?
I mean, it really varies because like I just have a lot of demos, probably over 100.
Wow.
Um, if I had to guess, like probably something like that. And I just kind of like I think once I have an idea for like a project, like a title or an aesthetic, then it's like it becomes easier for me to figure out like what the project is missing or what songs I'm working with that kind of fit that. So with this next project, I was like, I wanted it to be loud, fun, kind of nostalgic, kind of like tricky. And so I was like, okay, it needs a little bit of this and that. This song kind of works with that, even if it's not the same thing. And so like, Tricky is like that song is like I made that song in like December 2021. They didn't come out
Wow.
until like a month ago. But then Showtime I made genuinely uh like a month ago. So it's like some of it is very old, some of it. Oh no, that's not true. I made Showtime in April. But there's songs on the project that I made last month. Because now I've kind of figured out which songs are going to be on it and which songs aren't. So um, it's just kind of like figuring out what I've got, what exactly I want to say in this moment as like a bigger statement, and then figuring out how to present that, and then what songs are going to work with it. Because I love creating, so I never want to like limit myself and be like, oh, I'm this kind of artist today. I'm this kind of. It's like no, just go in there and see what happens. So I feel like that's led to like me making like more interesting music. When I like my song Goofy, it's like 2 years old. It's actually going to be on this project too. Because when I made it, I loved it so much that I wanted to drop it immediately, but it didn't really fit with the other stuff I was making. But over time, I've made a full project that works with it. So I'm glad that I didn't like just throw it onto like my last album or whatever. But I still love that song enough to like want to put it on a project. But that song, like, I didn't know I was gonna make a song like that day. I walked into a room with producers I'd never met before, and was just like, see what happens. And that song came out, and I was like, this is sick. and I never made anything like that before. And so the other songs on the project are almost like me like learning to how to unlock that and how to build around that. So I'm really excited for that to come out.
I don't understand how you can hold something back you love. Like,
It's hard. It's
because
hard.
yeah, I mean 2021, 2022. I mean, I'm sure you've got songs that are older than that as well that you may have not released. Like, yeah, do you
Yeah,
have songs that you're like, I love this, but I just don't know how to bring it out?
for sure. For sure. There's a couple songs. Yeah, I'm thinking like on the project. I mean, there's a song that I think will come out next year, that the first version of that song I made in 2021. Um, so yeah, that's like it happens, you know. There's songs where there's like scraps of ideas or like little things that I take and use later. I think that's just a part of creativity, you know, like you make something, it's like even if you don't know exactly how to release it, like I have a lot of fun figuring out what the cover is going to look like, what the video is going to look like. And it's like if I make a song and I don't immediately know what that's going to look like, or I don't, or I do, but I don't have the resources to do it right now, then I might just sit on it for a little while. But that's also because I've built up like such a backlog of like so many songs from just being in the studio as much as I could over the past couple years. So it's like I still have so much music that I could release really at any time. So it's kind of just like how I'm feeling. Like there's times that I fall back in love with songs because like I had made something else and forgot about it, and then I just life brought me back to it, and I was like, damn, I'm feeling how I was feeling then. Or even times where I've made songs and like I didn't really know what I was talking about when I made it, and then later I realized, and I'm like, oh, that's what I meant. Now I can relate to this thing that I created um even more than I could when I made it. And sometimes that makes me go back and like reappreciate new things. Um,
That's
so
really
it's like,
interesting that
yeah,
you you would make a song and then you experience life and then you're like, oh, I understand the song. Like that's yeah, that's fascinating to me that you would make a song that you don't 100% understand.
yeah, I think that sometimes like you just kind of like go with the flow on a song. Like someone starts making a beat, you're like, ooh, like what this melody sounds cool. And then you just kind of like the first words that come to your head might be what you say. And you don't really know why those words come to your head. And then later you're like, oh, I feel like I could be talking about this. But I think the truth there is that like um you know, depending on how specific the song is, like lyrically, like they can just be interpreted in different ways. And so it's like sometimes like what you're talking about, you know, it could be about a relationship, like love. It could also be about a friendship, you know, it could be about family. It could be about, it could be a metaphor for something else that's just being represented that way. And it's like you might write a song that just kind of goes along with like your inspirations or goes along with whatever, and then not realize really like how it fits into your life. And then once you do, you understand it on a deeper level, and you're like, whoa, cool. I think I know how I can like represent that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's just it's like it sits in your subconscious and you're not even
Yeah,
really you're just like, I don't know how it came out of me. It just came out and maybe you're
exactly.
just not ready to deal with something or acknowledge something or maybe it's just not even the full like close enough to you to be like I know what this is. I'm just like it sounds good and that's enough.
For sure. A lot of times it things start like that if they're not like super personal. You know, you're like, oh, this just sounds cool. And then you're like, oh, well, this actually like I can relate to this now in a different way. That's just a part of life, I think, and a part of creating.
Yeah. Have you accepted that you will just have lots of music at the end of your career that you never release? Because that's what it feels like, is like you're gonna have so much if you're addicted to like the creative process, if you're always making songs, like it goes from like I've got 10 in the back catalog to 20 to 30 to 100 to 500 to 1,000 at some point. There are like is music that you love, but you're like, I just never found a way to drop it.
For sure. I think that's one of the things that like as artists they don't really tell you. Like your favorite artist doesn't tell you that, but they probably have songs like that too, and things that sit in the vault forever, you know. Um, and they might be things that you would like more than stuff that they released, but sometimes it's just the way life goes. That's the way that like, you know, the project that they had built, that song fit better even if you don't like it as much as the other one, you know. Sometimes that's just how it is. I think I have accepted that. But also like being an independent artist, like it's really just me. I mean, like all my collaborators are awesome too, but I just mean like in terms of like who makes decisions and who decides what I drop, like it's me. So it's like I can empty the vault whenever I wanted to, you know. That freeing feeling is nice. Um, but it's just like, especially in 2024, you know, I look up to artists and like I wanted to be an artist because I loved so many artists before me. And, you know, they affected my life, and I want to do the same for others. And it's like their music affects me, but also the way that they roll things out, it can make something mean something totally different to you. You know, whether it's in the visuals or like just the way that they present something. And so I see that as part of the art too. And so a lot of times, like if I don't know how to present a song, I'll just sit on it. Because I know that like just emptying the vault, like yeah, people who really, really, really like me, they probably like it, but it's like it's not going to reach as many people as it maybe could. So just like learning to accept that it's a process, but as long as you enjoy the process of creating it and you don't get too caught up in like when a song does really well or when a song doesn't do really well, then like, you know, it's just you still got to create it, and that's really like what you're supposed to enjoy, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of artists struggle with that
For
because
sure.
you start with the love of the art, and then
Yeah,
you become obsessive with the results. And all of a
absolutely.
sudden, it becomes a results focus, not a creative process. And you just get lost in the only way I know this song is good is if it reaches X amount of streams, or it receives X amount of accolades, or I get these number of DMs, or this number of purchases. And that's a really challenging mindset to be in as an artist, because you kind of can't look at it that way, because
Yeah.
it's not freeing. It actually just controls you long term.
It sucks to look at it that way, but it's also like kind of inevitable. I think that every artist has to like they get sucked into that, and then it's however they get out of that that's gonna, you know, make the difference for them.
How did you get out of that?
I mean, I'm working on it every day. It really depends. Like I think one thing that's um I don't know, you know, like I feel like it really depends on the project. It depends on like I think it's just experience. I've been releasing music for like 6 years, you know, as Hadji Gaviota. So it's like I've had songs go crazy in the first week. I've had songs do nothing for months and then hit an algorithm thing and go crazy or go viral on TikTok to a, you know, smaller extent. Like I've had, you know, songs that I didn't think did much according to the numbers, and then someone came up to me and told me how much that song meant to them. And it's like it doesn't always get delivered to you at the same time. It's not like a direct deposit, you know, where that it hits on the 1st and the 15th if you work, right? It's like the payoff, like it's kind of random sometimes. So I've accepted that like when you put something out there, you're not always gonna get the thing that you want back immediately or on time, really at all. Um, so I've learned to accept that
Well,
just
I
through
think
experience. Yeah.
yeah, that's the weird thing is like, yeah, I think people get caught up in like the first week, and they're like, they rate it on the first week or the first month. And it's like, you just forget that sometimes like that song wasn't meant to go big in that week. It just needed time to reach, and then it grows. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think we get obsessed with, I released it. Now give me the attention that I want and the accolades that I want immediately. And if I got the accolades a year later, I'm like, fuck that, because it's a year
Yeah.
later.
You
And
gotta just learn to just like
yeah. And I was like, that's old news. I've moved on to my other shit. So I think it is a challenge for people to not get that immediate feedback, and it can take time.
for sure. It's definitely a challenge, but the more you get the feedback in sporadic bursts, the more you'll understand that it's not always going to come exactly when you expect it, for sure.
Yeah. I always, do you know what I always think about? Because you mentioned like, your favorite artists would have songs that they haven't released. I just wonder how many songs from my favorite artists I will just never get to hear. And I'm just
Probably
like,
a pretty big amount.
it's,
But it's
it's,
also like it's never as like timely as you think. Like there was an like I got an early link from somebody that I wasn't supposed to get, of like some pretty, like a pretty big rapper song, not like a huge rapper, but like a pretty big rapper song, and I got it like as like a Lucy, or I thought I was like, oh, this is some shit he's never gonna drop. And then it came out on an album like 2.5 years later as like a bonus track. And I was like, oh, I've had this for like 2 years. It's cool that it like finally came out, you know? But that experience, just being on the inside of it, I was like, oh, like other artists sit on things for really long too and figure out how to present it. And sometimes things are made a long time ago and then reworked right before they come out, you know, and just learning that like it's not just us as artists who do that. It's like also big artists who do that. Like it just kind of makes you see it differently a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if it was just brand new stuff. Yeah, sometimes I think you're right when you said like you make something, you just don't realize what it's supposed to be for. You don't
Yeah.
realize that there's just nothing that it's tied to. It's just this own individual thing, and you have to wait for it to come into a project or blend with a sound that you're working on.
Yeah, for sure. Or just like have the right eyes on you for it to do what it needs to do. Or even to like just get better at performing sometimes. Like I'll write a good song and like my voice won't hit the things that I want it to hit because I'm not a classically trained singer, you know, like I didn't really start like singing until I started putting music out. I really started as a rapper. So I've always wanted to like genre bend. Even like my earliest like rap stuff, it's like I was trying to like sample like the Clash. I didn't understand how to make it sound good. It sounded stupid, but like the idea. But then once I like started working with people who kind of like were able to fill in the gaps, and then I got better slowly over time and like doing all those things, it's like it became more natural for me to blend things in the way that I always saw as like something I wanted to do. But there were a lot of ideas. There are ideas that I revisit. There are songs that like sound like just way more polished versions of something I made like, you know, almost a decade ago. Um, but it's like you just learn how to do it better. And so it's like people don't know that when they hear the new version, you know, but it's like that's life. Like, and I always say like it's good to get your reps in as an artist. I think a lot of times artists feel like if they do a session with a producer or they sit down and they work on something for a long time and then it doesn't come out, that it's a waste of time. That's not true. I think that's like one of the biggest lies because it's like one, sometimes writing something, you will be able to use the scraps from that in something later. And your brain already did that so that in that session later where you're making something else, you're able to write a whole new hook and then be like, damn, I have pieces of a verse from this thing that I'm never going to put out, but I already used my brain power to make that. I can use that now and then work on the rest of the song and be able to come up with a whole song in one sitting. And you did that work beforehand. You felt like that work was worthless when you did it, but it wasn't. So I think that's like one of the big things with learning is just kind of being patient, enjoying the process of creating so that you don't get too caught up in like the rewards when they come because the rewards are never going to come exactly when you think they're going to come for sure.
Well, what I like about your perspective is you have a long view of it. Like you don't
Yeah,
have a micro, like in this moment, I have to get this, or if this doesn't happen, then it's bad. Like you have a very like big picture view of everything that you're doing. And I think that comes through in your music, but it also comes through in the energy that you present, which is like, hey, I'm just kind of enjoying the wild ride and it'll all fit together in its way. And I'm just trusting myself. I'm trusting the process. I'm trusting that
for
it will
sure.
all just kind of work out in the end.
I think if you're a person who seeks like immediate payoffs, this is not the right industry. So like, I mean, you see so many artists who have just been doing shit for years before they blow up. Like Chapel Roan is like a recent, you know, popular one. Dijon was in a whole artist, it was had a whole different artist project. Like on my YouTube channel where I like talk about, you know, videos and or I make videos about other artists a lot. Like it's like more than 50% of them had a project that was called something else before the one that is the one that they got famous for. And it's like you like these people had an insane amount of patience. They did not get an immediate payoff and they've been really talented the whole time, you know? And that just kind of reminds you that like it's not like, you know, a super linear path in music and you just have to accept that.
Well, it's like any career. Like,
Sure.
you do have to look at it as a career. You build your chops, you get experience, you become better at, your craft, you become better at the process of being an artist, what does that mean in the sense of, okay, I don't just release music, but I got a promo, I have shows, I have fan interactions, I have all of these things. I have other people that I have to work with. You know, you might have labels, you might have distribution deals, all these things you never think about when you become an artist. And it's the same in any other career. Like, you can't walk through the door and be like, I'm here and take me to the top. You have to earn your way up.
It does not work that way. Like I was thinking about I did a video about Tyler the Creator and because Ian, the rapper Ian, like his manager called Tyler an old head, basically, and was like, yo, you're an old guy hating on the kids. And then, which I don't think it's true, to be clear, and like I talk about that in the video, but in uh in the comments or somewhere on the internet, I saw someone be like, oh, Tyler's not um Tyler's tapped in with the youth. Like he put Tizo Touchdown on his album. And it's like from like an artist standpoint, Tizo Touchdown is a new artist. Tyler is 33. Tizo Touchdown is 31. So like they were in high school at the same time. You know what I mean? Like Tyler has been a public figure and a famous person for like 15 years. Tizo Touchdown has been a public figure for like 2 years. But
Well,
they're the same age.
yeah,
And it's like both immensely talented. But it just takes time for some people. You know, it's like it's very different. And it's like you just have to accept that you might not be Tyler, you might be Tizo.
yeah.
You know, that's okay. That's great. That's an awesome outcome. It just takes longer.
And also, it's not a bad thing to take longer. Like,
It's not,
just because it took longer doesn't mean you're worse.
for sure.
Like, and I think there that fallacy exists among a lot of people, which is I compare myself to the person who got there the quickest. And
Yeah.
if I don't get there the quickest, then I'm not as good. But it's like that you're different. You're a different person. You're on a different journey. You're not them. Even if you're siblings, you're going to go on your own path because you are two different people. And so you see that in athletes. You know, if they're siblings, the athletes don't have the same journey, but it's the same in music. And I think we just get absolutely obsessed with how quick can you get there. If you've been doing it for 5 years and you don't get the accolades, it's a waste of time. And it's like, that's just not true because you're building the base.
And you're growing too. Like you might need to do a little bit more growing. Or some artists like they pop and then they have to grow after. That's a challenge in itself. You know, sometimes it's good to grow before you have exposure, you know, like so that you can like really be thoughtful about stuff and like not have to do it in the public eye. 'Cause it's not easy to do that in the public eye. Like a lot of artists have to like learn really hard lessons about themselves, the people around them, like while maintaining a public image. That's not easy at all. It's a lot easier to do that if nobody's watching you. So it's like, you know, like
It's
it's not
also
always,
better. it's,
yeah, it's
it's better
great.
to do it.
It's great to pop. You pop it whatever time. It's awesome. Like, you know, it's a rare enough thing that like you should embrace it when it happens. But it's like it's not always great to have it happen when you're really young. You know, like you'll see a lot of artists say that too. And so it's, you know, there's a balance to it, like anything
Because
else.
you're a kid at that point. Like you don't even know who you are. You're like, you're not mature enough. Like even people who are mature and a little bit older, they don't handle fame that particularly well. And then when you're a
Exactly.
kid and you get famous, it's like this is wild. It fucks with you so badly. Like
Yeah.
that's why you see all these child actors who just end up broken because it just fucks with them. It's not
Yeah.
reality. You end up living a world that doesn't really exist. And you know, you mentioned Tyler the Creator. He's had a lot of controversy. People do talk about him a lot, and that's rough. Like, you know, he's been famous for a long time. That wears on you. Like, I've seen some interviews where he's just like over it. And I'm not
Yeah.
surprised. I'm not
I'm not surprised
surprised.
either. I'm surprised he's as well adjusted as he is. You know, it really says something about him, I think. It's yeah, it's a challenge. You know, it's like anything else. Every opportunity that comes will come with a unique set of challenges. And so it's just learning how to roll with what you've got every day and how to improve that. And then whatever comes from that, you know?
Yeah. I think it's a healthy perspective to have.
Yeah. It takes time though. Like I definitely like didn't when I first like had a song do well on like Spotify or whatever, I thought I was like gonna be rich and famous. Like, it's not how it works. Like, people around me though, like I had good people around me who were like, "Yo, bro, like you're not gonna make money on music for a long time," and I was like, "Oh yeah," they were right. They were totally right. It's like it just takes time. Like most things.
Yeah. How did that feel to realize that they were right?
It happens over time. It wasn't like an easy thing to accept. I think like I've been like um just learning how to like analyze the industry and understand like where it's at. Because it's like if you beat yourself up for not making money in music, it's like, dude, like who do you think is making money in music? It's not a lot of people. And a lot of people who are making money in music, like they're really just making money somewhere else and then investing in music and hoping that they'll make money on that eventually. It's like not a super profitable industry right now. So if you're getting into it like for the sake of making money, like you should probably just like go drop ship or like, get it go to trade school. Like, because it's not really like that's not what music is about. Like if you're able to make it in like, a career in this industry, like more power to you. But it's not super easy. Um, so I think people need to realize that. Once you realize that, it's like there's like two different ways to see it, right? Because it's like you look around and you're like, oh, it's not my fault. But then it's also like, damn, like I don't really have a path to follow. So I think that's something that I've been struggling with. Or I was like really grappling with over the last like 2 years, just because like I'm 28, like I'm like maturing, like I'm in a relationship, like I want to be serious and be an adult and like have kids. And it's like I want to make money off music, but it's like you look around and there's not that many paths to follow. Um, so it's like you have to figure it out yourself. And I've been doing that and it's been a lot of fun. And like, I'm reaching new people with my music and the YouTube thing has been really cool for that too. But it just took like there weren't a lot of people that, I had a path to follow. I was like, I gotta just figure this out myself. And it takes time, like anything else.
When you think about obviously needing money to survive and live the life that you want, and then to become a
Yeah.
father, to become a partner, you want to be able to provide.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile those two with like, okay, it's really challenging in my industry to make the probably the amount of money that I want to make to be able to provide the life that I want to have? Like, how do you end up reconciling that within yourself and going like, yeah, I'm going to continue, or at some point I'm going to have to turn around and go, you know what, this just isn't serving me, isn't serving my life or my partner and what I want.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like I'm blessed to like not be like in a position where I'm like financially squeezed. Like I live at home. I have a family that's super supportive of the creative thing, and so like being able to live in New York and not have to pay New York rent, like and just living at home with like my mom, it's like it's a game changer. Like it's really the only way like that you can make this done. And so like I recognize that like that's like obviously like I'm in a position of like a lot of privilege, like getting able to like see if I can turn this into a business thing without having to like really scrape, like I still have to work a day job to like pay for stuff and all that, but it's like I would really be like scraping, or I would have to have a more demanding kind of like day job vibe, to get by without that. And so like I'm really blessed to have that. So it's like that's kind of a starter, but it's like when I want to be in a real adult and like be like a provider and stuff, it's like I can't be living at home for that. Like so it's just like recognizing like music has value as a hobby, as a thing that you do because you love, because you enjoy it. The best art that you're going to make is going to come from that mindset. And if you're blessed enough to make money off of it, which is still something that I want to do, great. But like the worth in your music is not decided by whether or not you like do that or not. So if you need to get a job and then you have less time, it is what it is. That's what I really think. Like if you go into music like, yo, I'm gonna make mad money off this, it's just not realistic. There's just if money is your goal, there's like better things to do. Like you need to really love this shit to make it. And I've realized like to be where I'm at in my career, where it's like I'm still like a newer artist, I'm still growing, I'm still reaching new people. It's like after putting in a lot of years of work, it's like you're like, yeah, like I'm only if I wake up and I don't love this shit, I'm not gonna want to do it anymore. But I do, and it's like it takes like it takes a lot of reflection to be like, yo, how much do I really love this? And do I value that when I'm making stuff,
Yeah. And hey, it's also okay for money to be your goal. And
Yeah, for sure. I'm just
if
telling
you're,
you, I'm telling anybody who's watching this
yeah,
video, if they want to make money, like there's better ways.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you can definitely make it in a corporate career mid-level and still make a decent amount of money, you know, within a reasonable amount of time. Like I think it all comes down to like, hey, what do you want and what are you
Yeah.
willing to work for? And you know, like if you asked me like what are my interests, like people start talking science and maths to me and my brain just zones out. It's just not my, I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah.
Like when you get too deep, it's just not the way my mind works. I find conversations and people way more fascinating, which is why I talk to musicians, because often you are all the most fascinating people in the
Yeah.
world because of the way your minds work. But I think it's just find what you like and see if it can work. And if it can, it can. It can't, it can't. But if you want to make money, there's so many ways. I think music is just sexy. It
Yeah.
sounds good. You have the accolades, the fame, the shows. Like, you know, as a guy, you're kind of like, oh, there'll be women throwing themselves at me. You know what? Young man doesn't want that type of life. And then as I think as you grow and mature, you're like, actually, maybe this isn't 100% the life that I want. This is just the immature version of me that wanted it.
Yeah. There's something that I've thought about a lot, which is like when Drake and Joe Budden were going at each other, like Drake called Joe Budden like a failed artist. And I was like, first of all, I don't know if there's such a thing as like a failed artist. Like you put yourself out there. If the accolades are the only thing that is deciding whether you're a success or a failure in creating stuff, I don't think that's like a super great mindset to have. I understand why someone who is one of the most successful rappers in the world thinks that that's like the mindset because like if that's the playing field, then he's up. And I love Drake. Like I'm saying that as someone who's a Drake fan, you know? But it's like I think that's like a toxic mindset. Like and also like Joe Budden like had a huge hit song. Like most people don't ever have a huge hit song. So it's like I don't think he's a failed musician. I'm not even like a huge fan of his music. I'm just saying that as like that's something that I saw and I thought and I was like, you know, thinking that there's a concept of a failed artist is what's going to stop a lot of people from just creating what they want to make, you know? And like at the end of the day, like we have a short amount of time on this earth. Like if you're taking time away from your family members, taking time away from your friends, taking time away from your loved ones to work on your craft, you might as well just make the stuff that you want to make in that time, you know? Because it's
Yeah.
like that's really all it's about. And just like learning that I just want to make that like I want people to make the stuff that they really want to make. And I want to make the stuff that I really want to make. And I think that that's like, you know, if we all have to get day jobs at the end of it, it is what it is, you know? Like that's my perspective on it at least. Like I work at a day job with somebody who had a pretty successful career in music and still makes music, but you know, it's like a full-time has a full-time job. And I didn't know that they were the artists that they are, but I'd listened to their stuff before. And when I saw their life path, I was like, that's pretty sick. You make your art, you have your job. Like people at the job don't even know that you were this person and still are this person. I think it's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
everybody's got a different path in life. So I think just like you should express yourself. If you make money off expressing yourself, fire. If you don't, you still express yourself. That was the value in it in the first place. So I think just going from that perspective, I think is probably the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a full-time job as well.
Yeah,
So like people are like, do you can you make enough money to just do this? And I'm like, nope. I
that's
also
fine.
yeah,
You still get to do it, you know?
exactly. I still get to
Yeah,
like if you said to me that you would be able to interview the people that I've interviewed, do over 200 episodes consistently, I wouldn't have thought that that was possible. Like I've spoken to people that I've listened to for years and never thought I'd get to actually talk to. And I've spoken to those people like they know who I am. And if I saw them in the street, I would be like, hey, like we've spoken. That's to me, that's pretty cool to
sick.
be able to say.
So cool. That's what it's all about, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I should talk to you more. You make me feel good.
I mean, I just think like it's also because like I work at a high school, like I work with like high schoolers, kids. It's like you're always trying to like be like a good role model and like trying to push people in a good direction and see things in a positive way. So it's like that I think is rubbed off on me. But
It's a good trait to
it's
have.
like that's what it is. Like it's good to just try to enjoy shit. We're only here for so long, so enjoy
Yeah.
what you're doing. I just think that's really the most important thing. Like you can find a day job that you like and create things that you like, or if and you're the thing that you're creating, like you might be successful on that 10 years down the line. Um, and then be able to quit that job. There's no
Yeah.
timeline. Make stuff. But as long as you're making stuff that like if you're making stuff that you think people want to hear that's not what you really want to hear, they probably don't want to hear that shit. Yeah, like I feel like that's the lesson. Like people don't realize that. It's like unless it's really what you want to do, like you can become a freak, like a real like crazy person for making pop music. And then in that case, it's like, yo, you really want to get into that and be like a Charlie Puth type figure, like yeah, that could be your job. But it's like if you really want to make a different kind of thing and then force yourself to make that kind of stuff and compete with these people who live and breathe that kind of stuff because they love that kind of stuff, you're not going to win, in my opinion, like doing that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if
Yeah.
you're like, if you're someone who really wants to make like a more niche kind of music, like, and you force yourself to make this like popular stuff because you think that's what people want, that's a losing attitude to me. So I feel like you should just make the stuff that you want. It'll find the people with the internet, bro. It'll find the people. Maybe you won't be the weekend, but like it'll find somebody who likes it, and you could even like make a career out of it if you just be yourself. So I think it's really important to just push that as an artist, like onto people who are watching if they just started making music or if they're like lost in their career or whatever. Like what I would say is like, yo, you really just make the shit you want to make. Like don't worry about the other stuff. If that is in your future, it'll reveal itself when you make the stuff that you want to make. So
Yeah. I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree. The fake version of you that you think will sell is nowhere near as powerful as the real version of you that people want to know. Like
yeah,
that's why you and I are having a conversation and I don't have planned questions because number
yeah,
one, people don't give a shit about the like fake version and the questions that you've been asked about, you know, tell me about your childhood growing up. What music did you listen to? Tell me, how did you come up with your name? Tell me about how you came up with the title of this album or this. Like, I know all those questions get asked and they're like all that artists hear. That like they just
yeah.
keep getting asked the same questions. And I'm like, fans don't want to hear that shit. That stuff
Not
is
really.
boring.
They don't want to hear that shit. You're totally right.
No, they want to hear like the random thoughts that you have day to day that they're like, oh, I have those thoughts too. Like I didn't know that he and I have that in common, or I didn't realize that's what they thought about this. But like those are all the things to me that make you fundamentally way more interesting.
I agree. And a lot of the things that I find myself enjoying watching, like my favorite artists get interviewed, is like the random shit they talk about. I learn a lot from them. That's really all you can ask for in an interview format.
Yeah, because I just don't want to. You don't want to see the artist put on the artist show in a format where they're just having a conversation. Like
Mhm.
I've definitely been in conversations where I can see artists put up the show, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
You can't hold it for a long period of time. It's really difficult because
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
so that it eventually drops. You just got to be willing to pull through. But the benefit for me is that you haven't had that at all, and I'm so thankful.
That reminds me of like the Spider-Man Miles Morales NPC guy on TikTok who like has to play the character and then he breaks it all the time. And like the funny thing is that him breaking character is what always reaches my algorithm. It's never like Miles Morales NPC TikTok doesn't get to me when he's just really being Miles Morales. It only gets to me when somebody fucks with him and he breaks character. There's probably a deeper point of that. I don't really know what it is, but it's like it's just funny to me. Like it's like it's because that's like the interesting thing is watching the dude be like, like lose his shit for a second. I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's funny. It's
Because
really
you see
interesting.
the real version. That's what it is. The interest is not in the show. The interest is in who's the guy behind that. Like
Yeah, yeah,
who's that person? I want to see the glimpses of the real person. That's
yeah, for
that's what's
sure.
fascinating. Is not the show. It's like oh, I want to see the uncut version. I want to see the real life reaction. I want to
Yeah,
see,
like what is he really doing? Yeah, what goes
yeah,
on for sure.
yeah, because we all know that he is reacting that way in different scenarios. Like you're like, I imagine that he would. Like I'm
For sure.
sure. Um, but do you know what I wanted to ask you? Because
Yeah.
you said your first song went big, and then I read somewhere that you had like labels reaching out to you. You're independent now. Like,
Yeah.
what was that like in terms of deciding not to go with labels and stay independent? Because like I've spoken about this topic before, it's quite a bit of pressure when
Yeah.
people start reaching out to you and talking about signing deals and things like that.
So my first song, it wasn't my first song. It
Just
definitely
when it
wasn't the
went
first.
big, just your first big song.
Yeah, and even big, right, is like relative. Like it has like 2 million plays on Spotify, right? So it's like right now, like
Oh yeah,
6 years later.
yeah, totally nothing. Like,
Right.
that's
No, it's great.
huge.
Right? It's
Yeah.
great. I'm just saying that like when it's like I don't want to make it sound like, ooh, I was a big hotshot with this big song. Like I had a song do well, right? It probably had 30,000 Spotify plays when I started getting emails from publishers, from labels, and I had one label meeting. My idea at the time was if you have a label meeting, they're going to give you an offer. That was not the case. I don't think I really would have taken one if I got one, but I definitely would not have known what to do with myself if I signed to a label. Because when I went to that label meeting, I was at the idea that I made this album because I wanted to make this album. I didn't have any music unreleased. I just had this one project, of which none of it is on Spotify anymore, except for the one song that did really well. There are a couple songs I really like, but you can only leave it all up or take it all down unless they were already singles. And I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just leave the songs that I like on YouTube, you know? But so it's like I never got an offer to accept or turn down. I thought that that was how it worked. Labels are reaching out to kids all the time, like all the time, just to get them in the system and to like track them and then see if they go viral a couple times. I mean, this was 2018, so it was also like the virality was a different concept. But it's like they just want to watch and see what happens. So that's really like the big thing that I learned. I've gotten offers. I've never gotten offers from a major label. I've gotten offers from indie labels. And I just haven't accepted them because it just didn't make sense, like financial sense for me. Like the amount of money that they would offer me was not enough for me to change my creative or for me to like be able to do bigger things. So it was just giving up a piece to get a little bit more upfront that wouldn't really change how I live my life. So I was just kind of like, I'll just keep doing this myself. And that's kind of been my attitude up to this point. Um, but yeah, it's like they don't really tell you about what label meetings are like until you're in one. And so that's like the one reason why I feel like I talked about that was just to like get an idea for what it meant. I didn't really know what any of that meant when it happened. So
See, that's the thing that has always been weird to me is the power dynamics in a meeting like that. Is like, you know, I know, as you said, that they have lots of those meetings. They reach out to lots of artists. And
lots.
like for them it's just business. For them it's just like, hey, if I'm like it's just called, I'm going to use sales terminology because that's my corporate career is like, so it's like lead generation. You're like going out, you're scouting, and you're just going, okay, if I speak to enough people, eventually one of these people is going to turn into a good investment at some point.
That's exactly how it works, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
but to me, it's like, so they're just talking to you. They're going, Hadji, like, hey, man, I might be interested in the. I'm assuming this is the conversation, by the way. I have no experience, but this is what I would be saying is like, hey, I like what you've done. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. Potentially in the future, if there is continual growth in this path, I might be potentially interested. But like,
That's
this is what I would need to see.
yeah. I mean, that's basically what it was, right? And yeah, that is exactly what it was. and they probably wanted to hear like more unreleased music, which I didn't have. So that's one piece of advice I would give to artists is like, um, like have stuff in the tuck ready to go. Because if you drop something and it goes crazy and you don't have the response, you're gonna like people who want to invest in you are gonna want to see that. That's whatever. That's not even the main point. The bigger point for your mental health is like you're gonna be like, how do I make another one of those? And you're gonna drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So I would say take your time, make a couple songs, figure out how you want to roll them out, or tease them and see what happens. I mean, you just play it by ear, honestly, but I would be mentally prepared that like people are gonna be asking for number two before you finish number one.
Yeah.
I have to use the bathroom real quick. I'm be right back.
No, go for it. Yeah. But yeah, it's weird. I think the whole label scenario is just strange. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like smoke and mirrors. It seems very few people talk about it. Very few people give a lot of insight, and musicians seem to like because you're gonna take those meetings, and everyone seems to walk into most of them unprepared.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible to be super prepared without experience, is what I would say. Also, I think one of the issues with understanding how labels work is that none of them really work the same, and situations can be like totally different, kind of depending on like what kind of music you make, who your A&R is, what kind of label it is. Like there's just it's too much for everybody to be fully prepared to know everything before they go into it. Um, but the basic way to think about it is that it's an investor, it's like a bank. So like they're gonna give you a percentage. They're gonna give you money in exchange for a percentage. Your leverage is gonna decide how much money that is and how big of a percentage that is. It's like Shark Tank. If you watch Shark Tank, it's like
Yeah.
that. You'll understand the concept. And then it's just like, it's like, does that label have experience developing artists that sound like you? Do they have interest in developing you at all? Or are they just trying to give you money in exchange for something that you've already got figured out? Your situation is going to vary big time depending on that. I think the only advice I could really give is like take the calls, but also make sure you have some smart people around you who can explain it to you so that you don't get yourself into a situation that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah.
I've had friends who've had great experiences on labels. I've had friends who've had bad experiences on labels, and I have friends who work at labels. So at least I understand kind of why it goes wrong sometimes. It's not
Yeah.
always like anyone's fault.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I think it's just, I say this all the time, and I've said this on the show many times. Don't sign a piece of paper without understanding what you're signing.
for sure, big time.
That's just the basics. Like, if you don't do that, if there is one thing to ever take away, is don't sign something you don't understand.
Yeah,
That's it.
in life, I would say,
Yeah.
even
Just,
beyond his labels, but
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So, and I think that's the problem. And, the money can also be done differently. Some money is payment, some money is a loan. You have to know what's the difference between the loan and what they expect to be recouped. What they like, all these things are all different structures of every deal. So, like, I just think I genuinely believe labels can definitely help people, but you got to make sure that you're looking after yourself, because if you put all your faith in a label, it's like putting all your faith in a business or in a company. They're not going to give you the best offer straight up front. They just never do. It's called negotiating. Um, every company that I have ever worked for gives you an offer that they would most likely want. That's their ideal scenario. So they'll give you less than you're worth. They'll give you the terms that they want. They don't want to give you everything under the sun. That's your job to go back and be like, actually, I don't want this. I don't want that. And I want this. I need this. Otherwise, I'm not going to sign. Like, you have to negotiate.
For sure, big time.
Yeah. All the things. That's why it's easier sometimes. That's why it's probably easier to be an independent artist. You don't have to deal with that. You get all creative control. You don't have to worry on that side of things. And like,
Yeah,
it really depends on what you want.
yeah. I think knowing what you want is a really important piece of the process too. Like, if you don't know what you want, then, or like if you don't really know what a label situation would give you, like if they don't explicitly tell you what that's going to be, then it might not make sense. That's another big piece of the puzzle. Not everybody needs to be signed to one. Some people would benefit from being signed to one. Some people make it makes sense to be independent for a long time, and then once you figure out exactly what you need, then you go to a label. That happens.
Yeah.
Pretty
And then
common,
there are
actually.
and then there are just people who are like, I don't need help with the music. I don't want you having any creative control. I have all creative control. I need help with one little piece of the puzzle. And
For
then
sure.
that's why distribution deals exist, because they're like, I just need you to distribute. That's it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Yeah.
distro. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or like, yeah,
everyone has those deals.
yeah, those are
Yeah.
nice for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, man, you know, it is awesome to be able to talk to you, because like you're just, I don't know, it to me it's refreshing to be able to speak to someone like you who's like pushing the boundaries, who's doing new things. Um and man, I only have one more question for you before we wrap up. It's probably the toughest question I'm going to ask, but
Okay.
if you had to recommend one album that everybody should listen to at least once to get an appreciation of, can be any genre of music, cannot be your own music, what would it be?
Okay. Uh, I, I think I'm gonna go with Channel Orange. Not to like push it in the it's kind of it is what it is. I mean, I think that I never knew I wanted to be a songwriter until I heard Nostalgia Ultra. And then I was like, just the stuff that Frank was talking about, I was like, this is cool. I really like R&B music in general, but I didn't know you can make R&B music and talk about like the moon landing being fake and like, these like weird metaphor kind of songs, like songs for women and stuff. And like, I don't, an American Wedding and just like the storytelling was amazing. I was like, yo, this is so sick. He's like playing with these sounds I like, but he's talking about really interesting stuff. Um, and then Channel Orange just took that and like steroids it, just juiced it up. And it's like you have songs about drug addiction, you have songs about being a drug dealer, you have songs about being an international drug dealer, you have songs about dating a drug dealer, you have songs about dating a stripper, you have songs about like um getting a girl pregnant or being worried that you might get a girl pregnant. And you have songs about like, like figuring out your sexuality or coping with religion on top of it. And you have songs about like, bro, he talks about so much shit. And it's like, it's insane. And it's like, it's the music is obviously A1. A lot of people probably like who don't care about songwriting that much, like they listen to those songs and don't really know what they're about because they sound great without paying attention. And then when you pay attention, you're like, bro, what? This is crazy. You know what I mean? I feel like that album is just the perfect. I know a lot of people love Blonde. Blonde is like the classic. I love Blonde too, but to me, Channel Orange, especially because I'm like an R&B guy at heart. I think R&B is really my favorite genre. Like, um, Channel Orange is it to me. Channel Orange is the one that really made me appreciate music. So I feel like that's the best one for me to go with.
And I gotta say, one of the best answers I've had as to why that project, because like, yeah,
Yeah.
that honestly, if you don't want to listen to that album right now, I don't know what's wrong with you. Because I want to listen to, as you were speaking, I was like, I have to listen to that album. Like, I have to
It's so
go
good. Then
make
you
sure.
start lining up, you start being like, damn, that's what Pilot Jones is about. I didn't even think about that. Or like, it's like there's so much shit. Like Sierra Leone, I feel like is the one where the meaning is like kind of well tucked. And you listen to it and you're like, what? That's a crazy thing to make a song about and make it sound that good? It's just like I just feel like he's so awesome, man. Like he really inspired me to want to create. So I gotta pay it forward to whoever listens to it because I said so.
Well, we obviously we thank Frank Ocean for inspiring you, because if you weren't inspired, you wouldn't be making the music that you're making. It
Yeah,
is awesome to see you making music. The
thank
the the landscape of music is only better for having people like yourself in it. Um, as we said at the top of the show, Tricky, the single came out. You've got an EP called Showtime coming out. It'll be out right now. So please make sure you check it out. Show him some love. And man, it's been awesome. Is there anything you wanted to plug? Anything you wanted to shout out before we wrap it up?
you. I got an album coming out this year before the year is over. So if you like Tricky, if you like Showtime, there's gonna be another single in September. It's gonna be another single in October. There's gonna be a whole album in November, probably. So keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited for it. We got some really cool songs, got some really cool collabs on there. We got a pretty it's got a little bit of cohesion, and then it's also got a little bit of variation in it. It's a nice little mix. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun making the visuals. Um, I'm really excited for this project, and the crazy thing is I got a lot more stuff I'm really excited about coming right after it. So I promise I'll make it worth your while. Tap in. It's gonna be a great time.
Stay tuned. It's a big end of 2024 and a big 2025. Man, we're already talking about next year. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. As I
Crazy.
said, it's been great to talk to you. We'll definitely have to do it again. And yeah,
Absolutely.
when your next project
Yeah.
comes out, we'll have to reconnect.
We definitely will. I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun for real. It's a great conversation.